Can we just start with the rules here? Why are the mics muted tonight? I know your campaign was working hard to have mics unmuted since Joe Biden's not part of this. It's a different combination. What happened with that? And who's going to control the microphones for the vice president and former president?
Yeah, it's a great question, and thanks for having me. But when it comes to the rules of this debate, unfortunately, these microphones are going to be muted, and so the candidates aren't going to be able to engage each other directly. This is a leftover rule from when President Biden was the candidate against President Trump, and Vice President Harris is a different candidate, and we wanted to have open microphones so that the two candidates could engage in a real dialogue and a real debate with each other. Unfortunately, in the discussion over this rule, over whether or not we could unmute the microphone so that the Vice President and President Trump can have a real debate where they engage each other, the Trump campaign said no. What's interesting is that President Trump himself said he'd prefer it to be unmuted, but his handlers insisted that it stay muted, up to the point of even threatening to pull out of the debate if that rule were to change. So we thought, and the vice president thought, it was more important to keep this debate on and understand that even though we're not going to be able to have that real back and forth that you're used to in a debate, the American people deserve to hear and see the choice in this election. And so that's what people are going to get to see tonight.
So in the time allotted, Ian, is the vice president going to spend time fact-checking the statements of Donald Trump if he lies or mischaracterizes the facts, or is she going to focus solely on her own message?
Well, I think you only have about 2 minutes to give a response because of the way that the rules are structured. And so I think if you were to try to fact check everything that Donald Trump says that may be incorrect or inaccurate, you'd be wasting the entire 2 minutes that you have. And so I think instead of being a fact checker in chief, she's going to try to speak to the American people about her vision and her values. Of course, she'll respond to any of the lies or attacks that President Trump tries to lob her way. But one thing we've learned dealing with President Trump for a decade now in our public life is if you try to chase him down every rabbit hole, you're not going to end up anywhere. And so I think what she's going to do is talk about her positive vision for the rooted in who she is as a person, growing up in a middle-class family with a working mother, working-class neighborhood, and the vision that she brings to the country of bringing down prices for people, creating a more favorable business climate so that jobs can continue to grow, small business growth, as you guys cover a lot on this network, making sure that small businesses have the opportunity to thrive, small business owners who chart out on their own to start some new idea and entrepreneurship, that they have the resources that they need in order to get off the ground. These are the kind of concrete ideas that she's running on, that she's going to be talking about to the American people tonight. I don't know what President Trump's going to be talking about. If it's his economic agenda, I think he's going to have a hard time because he's proposing a plan that would raise taxes on the middle-class people by $4,000 a year. I don't know how that helps inflation. That's what he's going to be talking about if he talks about his economic plan. And so I think you're going to see that sort of contrast in visions for the future, which hopefully will help the American people see sort of which candidate is on their side or not.
Well, it's interesting we're talking about the economy, and we hope there are more details on economic proposals from both sides tonight, Ian, because our polling here at Bloomberg News and consistent with others show that voters trust Donald Trump with handling the economy. I want to ask you, though, I don't know what Donald Trump's going to say any more than I do what Kamala Harris is going to say, but I suspect he could ask the vice president tonight, why didn't you do any of these things you're proposing in the last 3.5 years you were in the White House? Surely you ran this line in your debate prep. Ian, how do you answer that?
Well, I guess President Trump might need to be reminded what a vice president does, which is to advise the president and to support and help execute the president's agenda. I don't know if President Trump would like it very much if our campaign or any campaign was asking him why Mike Pence didn't get everything done when he was in office. I think we know how he feels about former Vice President Mike Pence, and I don't know if he would like the idea very much that Vice President Mike Pence should have been setting the agenda when he was the president. So I think what you're going to hear from Vice President Harris is her own vision, her own list of priorities for the country if she gets elected president, because that's what a campaign is about. She is the vice president. She's proud of the record that she and President Biden have been able to accomplish, whether it's passing the Inflation Reduction Act, the American Rescue Plan, bipartisan infrastructure bill, CHIPS that created more manufacturing in the United States. Those sorts of record of achievement is something that she's very proud to run on, but she's also her own candidate, and she wants to talk about her own priorities so that when the voters go to the booth in November, they know what she's prioritizing, not just that she was vice president.
Well, of course, Ian, it's not just domestic issues that may be raised on that stage tonight. Foreign policy is likely to come up as well. And as you just described the vice president as someone who essentially just has an advisory role within the administration, how can she make the case that she has the foreign policy chops that an actual person who was commander-in-chief, who sat in the Oval Office, does not?
Well, this is a vice president who's traveled the world to rally our allies together on pressing global challenges. She's helped support the work of President Biden to rally our allies against Russia's aggression in Ukraine, meeting directly with world leaders, meeting directly with President Zelensky to talk about the aid that we need to give to that country to help them fight back against Putin's brutal invasion. She's worked directly in the Middle East with our partners there to try to ease the conflict. And she's worked directly with, President Trump likes to sort of falsely attack her as some sort of border czar. Well, what her actual role was diplomatic relations with the Northern Triangle countries. And what she did with the Northern Triangle countries, which many people who watch Bloomberg often will see, is that she worked with the leaders of those countries and private sector business leaders to create economic investments from the private sector in those countries to try to improve the economic climate in those countries in order to decrease the need for migration away from those countries because of the political and economic turmoil that exists. And it's worked. It's succeeded. The immigration from those countries since she has been able to take that challenge on has gone down. And so these are the kind of real record of achievement that she has on the global stage that shows that she's ready to be commander-in-chief on day one.